What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the sales of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, it's been something we've talked about once before, and look, any modern-day Final Fantasy game is absolutely going to have this talk, right? Remake, Rebirth, Final Fantasy 16, and to be fair, and the last time we talked about Rebirth sales, right, we looked at just one kind of snippet of info, and we looked at really the declining player base and declining sales of the Final Fantasy series, I believe in Japan, right? And it's really, ever since like 7, 8, 9, and then it kind of just like started falling off. 13 really killed it seems like, in a negative way, not killed it in a good way. You had 15 that did pretty okay, but then 16 drops back, and, Remake and Rebirth now. So we've done that before, and, that video's on the channel if you guys want to check it out. So let's look at what's being reported, and then I'll kind of chime in, right? Because I feel like this is going to have a lot of, not necessarily console warrior things, but just, I think, a lot of infighting. So this comes from Daniel, and he's pretty good in this kind of stuff. He's kind of well-respected, I guess I should say, right? So somebody literally asked him, what's going on with it, and he says it's selling about half of what Remake sold in the same time frame, and looks like it'll have a weaker tail prior to any PS Plus-like release. And this was because over like the weekend, on Friday, on Thursday, the last couple days, right, there was the report that came out that was kind of weird, and I don't really buy it all the way. It looks at like people that played the demo of Rebirth and then bought the game compared to Stellar Blade demo and then buying the game, but it's a lot of projections. Like, it's not, I don't think it's like exact, it's specifically the sales of the game. And it basically was saying that Rebirth has sold around 2.5 million. I think it was like 2.24 or something, right? So right in that mid-range. So that's what was being talked about. So this guy who's an analyst, he was asked about it, and he talked about half as well as Remake. Okay, so I want to say a few things about it. I want to try to word it in the right way so people don't like get the wrong message from it. As a consumer, I don't really care how much a game is successful versus unsuccessful, as long as, in my opinion, what I want is as long as like the creatives still get to do what they want to do. So if Rebirth comes out and it doesn't do well, but Square Enix still allows them to make, say, Part 3, and that's what they want to do, that's my dream world. Does that make sense? Okay? But I gotta be real, and I think, and I do want to say this out loud from just like a casual perspective. We speak at it or on it from the internet. You know what I mean? Like, we're all on this, we're all connected, we're all plugged in. Many people, in fact, probably the majority of players of any given game, do not care literally at all about what we say. Or, they don't pay attention to what we say online, okay? They just want their game or not want their game, depending on how it looks. So I would say from like a casual perspective, as long as they either get the game or not get the game, depending on what the plan of the studio is, I don't think the sales matter to those people at all. Now, do the sales literally matter? Of course they do. Of course they do, right? This could affect them long term. This could affect some sort of planning that they got, maybe like a PlayStation deal or whatever. So selling half as well as Remake, if that's true. We don't know that for sure. I will say one thing to start it. It's not shocking. Why is it not shocking? Couple of reasons. One reason that people did say a lot going into this game, it's the second one. You think about it, and actually you can look at Final Fantasy 13 as a good example. If you look at the sales, the Japanese sales, right, of Final Fantasy 13, and you look at Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, there is a sizable drop. And why is there a sizable drop? Well, to be honest, you're telling people that you need to play Part 1. Now, for us, that's easy, or it's natural, right? For a lot of people out there, though, if you tell them that it's part of a series, let's say, and I know it's part of Final Fantasy, but people know, like, you don't have to play 1 through 16 and then play this, right? But you are telling people you have to at least play Remake, and potentially you're telling people you have to play the original Final Fantasy VII, then play Remake, then play Rebirth. So naturally, you are going to get less people, I think, just from that. Just from the informal ask to play the games before it, people don't necessarily do that. Also, it's the middle entry. Even if you just care about the more recent Remake, right? Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. The middle one is going to probably be the least popular, even though, and I don't want to spoil, but because of the whole Aerith thing and, whether it happens or not happens, that way people can watch this video, right, without beating it. No matter what happens, that's a central thing in this game. What are they going to do with Aerith? And that was a big thing leading into the game. What happens with Aerith? Because we know where this game ended and we knew, what it was going to lead up to or not lead up to, right? But even with that being said, you're still putting it as part 2 of a 3-part tale. I think people are more willing to play the first one because they just kind of want to see what it's about, or wait for the third one, maybe play the last one, or just get all 3. But people do wait for the last one. I've actually seen, and look, is it hundreds of thousands of people? Probably not. But I have seen plenty of people on social media that have said, I'm waiting for part 3. I'm not going to play part 1, wait 4 years, play part 2, wait 4 years, play part 3. And you know what? I actually get that. I totally get that, actually. So if even maybe you guys know somebody that's like that, I feel like that makes a lot of sense, and that could be a problem here. People might be waiting till part 3 to get all 3 of them. People might be waiting for part 3 to do some sort of collection of 1, 2, 3, which they did that for Rebirth, right? They combined Remake and Rebirth. So I think they'll do that again for part 3, and maybe people are waiting for that one. Okay, so that's one part of it. You can also say it's only on PlayStation, only on PS5, and, you know, that goes to Square Enix's strategy, and if that changes, it changes. If it doesn't change, it doesn't change. One thing that I've said in the past is I don't know, like, I feel like they should be able to forecast this stuff, and to be honest, I would hope that they can look at this entire picture, right, and say a few things. What we just talked about, like being part 2 of a part 3 thing. Number 2, the first game came out back in 2020, right during blank, you know, the event around the world. This one doesn't have it. So, and I do think, I mean, people were at home. People were looking for things to do. I think that did inflate a lot. That inflated users on social media. That inflated YouTube videos getting more views. That inflated games getting purchased more. I absolutely believe that. Now, how much? It's hard to tell, right? But I really think it did that. So that's another thing going against this game. The PS4 had more literal units out in the wild that people owned versus right now on PS5. Now, it's not like the most in the world more. Like, there actually is a good amount of PS5s, and the attachment rate isn't phenomenal, you know, for people that have PS5s that have Rebirth. But you could say putting it on just PS... Now, I want it on just PS5. I don't think this game made any freaking sense doing PS4 and PS5. But, you know, is that something that could hurt the game? Yeah. Is, again, releasing it just on PlayStation hurting the game? If you put it on PC, how much better would it do? If you put it on Xbox, how much better would it do? I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I feel like putting it on PC would do an okay amount. Xbox, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. And you know what? That's on Square Enix. That's another part of, like, the casual consumer, maybe part of me. If they think that it's going to do better by putting it on more than one place, then, you know, that's a contract situation. You know what I mean? Now, they probably signed contracts a long time ago. There's no turning back now. But again, as long as they were kind of prepared for something like this, and this goes also back to, by the way, what we talk about actually all the time on the channel, the games that cost $100, $150, $200 million to make. You know, this is where it would start to be an issue, right? Like if your game from 1 to 2 does half as well, but say it costs the exact same amount to make them, well, now you might be in some big trouble, right? So I don't know if the game's in big trouble. You know, again, this analyst talks about it also not really having legs. I don't believe that. I got to be real. If there's anything I disagree with him, because again, he is kind of a respected individual, and that's fine. The last part, it doesn't seem to have, like, which he says tail. I assume that just means legs, right? It might not sell well long term. I don't know about that, because I feel like as the PS5 continues to sell the next 2, 3, 4 years, this game would, you know, I'm not saying like for every freaking PS5, right, this game would sell, but I do think it's possible it could do better. I also think you might see a real pickup of this game or uptick in this game right before Part 3. When they announce Part 3, you might see an uptick in this game. When it's the year that game comes out, you might see an uptick in this game. It's a long play. It's a play that you might have to, like, wait on copies. Like, the money, getting your money back, say, or, like, breaking even, making a profit, might not happen for a few years, and it might not happen until you get that uptick when you get closer to Part 3. That's very possible. I don't know that for sure, but I would imagine that's a possible scenario. So, you know, I mean, that's my analysis of it. Again, it's kind of like a sit back and just observe. Like, look, we're not there. We're not making the contracts. We're not, and that's why I don't know. I don't get too serious. I know there's console warriors. They get very, very serious about this kind of stuff. I don't know. Like, it either comes out or it doesn't. it either, like, they have to shift strategies or they don't. It's not up to us. We either support or not support the game. That's it. That's all we can do. Literally, that's all we can do. They can change course, and I think we're still going to get part 3, like, no matter what. I think it's going to be a PlayStation exclusive no matter what. Maybe on PS5 and PS6, but it will be, I think, just on PlayStation. And if this is the last time Square Enix does it, and afterwards they say, we're not going to do it anymore, we're going to just do, multi-release, then that's, that's them. That's not on us, right? So all we can really do is, again, either support the game, not support the game, and I guess sit back and just watch as, whatever happens. And last thing, and again, I kind of said earlier, but I do want to throw it out. Final Fantasy, I do think, is just kind of dwindling. Again, like, you look at the sales, no joke, the last 20 years. The game has been going on a decline. So that's, again, up to Square Enix to either change strategy, on what makes a Final Fantasy game, right? That's one thing. Or you don't rely on it to be, like, your main thing. Maybe Kingdom Hearts picks up the slack. Maybe something else picks. You know what I mean? You have to change something, because I do think seeing 20 years, 2 decades of the franchise just not being what it was, and it costing more than ever, and you're not really necessarily making more than ever, right? That's something that they're going to have to figure out. But, again, we can just sit back and watch that. We can't literally do anything about it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.